Jean-Jacques Rousseau was born on June 28, 1712 in Geneva, Switzerland. His mother died shortly after his birth. When Rousseau was 10, his father fled from Geneva to avoid imprisonment for a minor offence, leaving young Jean-Jacques to be raised by an aunt and uncle. Rousseau left Geneva at 16, wandering from place to place, finally moving to Paris in 1742. He earned his living during this period, working as everything from footman to assistant to an ambassador. Rousseau's profound insight can be found in almost every trace of modern philosophy today. Somewhat complicated and ambiguous, Rousseau's general philosophy tried to grasp an emotional and passionate side of man which he felt was left out of most previous philosophical thinking. In his early writing, Rousseau contended that man is essentially good when in the state of nature, that is, the state of all the other animals and the condition man was in before the creation of civilization and society, and that good people are made unhappy and corrupted by their experiences in society. He viewed society as artificial and corrupt, and that the furthering of society results in the continuing unhappiness of man. Rousseau's essay, Discourse on the Arts and Sciences, argued that the advancement of art and science had not been beneficial to mankind. He proposed that the progress of knowledge had made governments more powerful and crushed individual liberty. He concluded that material progress had actually undermined the possibility of sincere friendship, replacing it with jealousy, fear, and suspicion. Perhaps Rousseau's most important work is the social contract that describes the relationship of man with society. Contrary to his earlier work, Rousseau claimed that the state of nature is brutish condition without law or morality, and that there are good men only a result of society's presence. In the state of nature, man is prone to be in frequent competition with his fellow men because he can be more successful facing threats by joining with other men. He has the impetus to do so. He joins together with his fellow men to form the collective human presence known as society. The social contract is the compact agreed to among men that sets the conditions for membership in society. Rousseau was one of the first modern writers to seriously attack the institution of private property and therefore is considered a forebear of modern socialism and communism. Rousseau also questioned the assumption that the will of the majority is always correct. He argued that the goal of government should be to secure freedom, equality, and justice for all within the state, regardless of the will of the majority. One of the primary principles of Rousseau's political philosophy is that politics and morality should not be separated. When a state fails to act in a moral fashion, it ceases to function in the proper manner and ceases to exert genuine authority over the individual. The second important principle is freedom, which the state is created to preserve. Rousseau's ideas about education have profoundly influenced modern educational theory. He minimizes the importance of book learning and recommends that a child's emotions should be educated before his reason. He placed a special emphasis on learning by experience. Johann Henrik Pestalozzi. Johann Henrik Pestalozzi, Swiss social reformer and educator, is known as the father of modern education. The modern era of education started with him, and his spirit and ideas led to the great educational reforms in Europe in the 19th century. Pestalozzi believed in the ability of every individual human being to learn and in the right of every individual to education. He believed that it was the duty of society to put this right into practice. His beliefs led to education becoming democratic in Europe. Education became available for everyone. Pestalozzi was particularly concerned about the condition of the poor. Some of them did not go to the school. If they did, the school education was often useless for their needs. He wanted to provide them with an education which would make them independent and able to improve their own lives. Pestalozzi believed that education should develop the powers of head, heart and hands. He believed that this would help create individuals who are capable of knowing what is right and what is wrong and of acting according to this knowledge. Thus, the well-being of every individual could be improved and each individual could become a responsible citizen. He believed that empowering and ennobling every individual in this way was the only way to improve society and bring peace and security to the world. His aim was for a complete theory of education that would lead to a practical way of bringing happiness to humankind. Pestalozzi saw teaching as a subject worth studying in its own right, and he is therefore known as the father of pedagogy. The method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept. He caused education to become a separate branch of knowledge alongside politics and other recognized areas of knowledge. Pestalozzi's approach has had massive influence on education. For example, his influence as well as his relevance to education today is clear in the importance now put on the interest and needs of the child, a child-centered rather than teacher-centered approach to teaching, active rather than passive participation in the learning experience, the freedom of the child based on his or her natural development balanced with the self-discipline to function well as an individual and in society, the child having direct experience of the world and the use of natural objects in teaching, the use of the senses in training pupils in observation and judgment, cooperation between the school and the home and between parents and teachers, the importance of an all-round education, an education of the head, the heart and the hands, but which is led by the heart, the use of systematized subjects of instruction which are also carefully graduated and illustrated, learning which is cross-curricular and includes a varied school life, education which puts emphasis on how things are taught as well as what is taught, authority based on love not fear, teacher training. Dr. Maria Montessori. The Montessori method of education developed by Dr. Maria Montessori is a child-centered educational approach based on scientific observations of children from birth to adulthood. Dr. Montessori's method has been time tested with over 100 years of success in diverse cultures throughout the world. Hallmarks of Montessori. Components necessary for a program to be considered authentically Montessori includes multi-age groupings that foster peer learning, uninterrupted blocks of work time and guided choice of work activity. In addition, full complements of specially designed Montessori learning materials are meticulously arranged and available for use in an aesthetically pleasing environment. The teacher, child and environment create a learning triangle. The classroom is prepared by the teacher to encourage independence, freedom within limits and a sense of order. Multi-age groupings are a hallmark of the Montessori method. Younger children learn from older children. Older children reinforce their learning by teaching concepts they have already mastered. This arrangement also mirrors the real world where individuals work and socialize with people of all ages and dispositions. In the elementary years, the child continues to organize his thinking through work with the Montessori learning materials and an interdisciplinary curriculum as he passes from the concrete to the abstract. He begins the application of his knowledge to real world experiences. This organization of information, facts and figures prepares the child for the world of adolescence, when thought and emotion evolve into understanding more abstract universal concepts such as equity, freedom and justice. Montessori education offers our children opportunities to develop their potential as they step out into the world as engaged, competent, responsible and respectful citizens with an understanding and appreciation that learning is for life. Each child is valued as a unique individual. Montessori education recognizes that children learn in different ways and accommodates all learning styles. Students are also free to learn at their own pace, each advancing through the curriculum as he is ready, guided by the teacher and an individualized learning plan. Beginning at an early age, Montessori students develop order, coordination, concentration, and independence. Classroom design, materials, and daily routines support the individual's emerging self-regulation, that is, the ability to educate oneself and to think about what one is learning, toddlers through adolescence. Students are part of a close, caring community. The multi-age classroom, typically spanning 3 years, recreates a family structure. Older students enjoy stature as mentors and role models. Younger children feel supported and gain confidence about the challenges ahead. Teachers model respect, loving kindness, and a belief in peaceful conflict resolution. Montessori students enjoy freedom within limits. Working within parameters set by the teachers, students are active participants in deciding what their focus of learning will be. Montessorians understand that internal satisfaction drives the child's curiosity and interest and results in joyous learning that is sustainable over a lifetime. Students are supported in becoming active seekers of knowledge. Teachers provide environments where students have the freedom and the tools to pursue answers to their own questions. Self-correction and self-assessment are an integral part of the Montessori classroom approach. As they mature, students learn to look critically at their work and become adept at recognizing, correcting, and learning from their errors. John Dewey. John Dewey was an American philosopher, psychologist, and educational reformer. He was born in 1859 and died in 1952. His ideas have been influential in education and social reform. He was one of the early developers of pragmatism and functional psychology. The following are some of his ideas about education and society. Education and democracy. John Dewey considered two principal elements to be fundamental in strengthening democracy, namely schools and civil society. According to Dewey, it is not enough to extend the voting rights. It is of paramount importance to form public opinion through education as well. The aim is to ensure effective communication among citizens, experts, and politicians. The latter must be accountable for the policies they adopt. Dewey argued that education and learning are social and interactive processes, and thus the school itself is a social institution through which social reform can and should take place. Thus, Dewey makes a strong case for the importance of education not only as a place to gain content knowledge but also as a place to learn how to live. In his eyes, the purpose of education should not revolve around the acquisition of a predetermined set of skills, but rather the realization of one's full potential and the ability to use those skills for the greater good in society. In addition to helping students realize their full potential, Dewey goes on to acknowledge that education and schooling are instrumental in creating social change and reform. John Dewey and education. Along with Jean Piaget, John Dewey was one of the first major contemporaries to develop a clear idea of what constructivism consists of. He was concerned with the learner. He wanted to shed light on the learner as an important agent in the learning process. He had precise insights regarding how education should take place within the classroom. According to Dewey, there are two major conflicting schools of thought regarding educational psychology. The first is centered on the curriculum and focuses almost solely on the subject matter to be taught. Dewey argues that the principal weakness in this methodology is the inactivity of the student. Within this particular framework, the child is simply the immature being who is to be matured. He is the superficial being who is to be deepened. The second is learner centered. He argues that in order for education to be more effective, content must be presented in a way that allows the student to relate the information to prior experiences, thus deepening the connection with his new knowledge. In addition to Dewey's ideas about how the learning process should take place, he also re-evaluated the role that the teacher should play within that process. According to Dewey, the teacher should not be the sage on stage anymore. The role of the teacher should be that of facilitator and guide. The teacher becomes a partner in the learning process, guiding students to independently discover meaning within the subject area. Susan Isaacs. Susan Isaacs was born into a large family in Lancashire in 1885. Her father was a journalist and a lay preacher in the Methodist Church. Her mother died when Isaacs was still a child. She left school at 15 and travelled abroad to work as a governess. She later returned to England to pursue teaching. Isaacs quickly realized that in order to make any progress in the teaching profession, she would need qualifications. Susan further began a teaching course for non-graduates at Manchester University. Her brilliant academic ability enabled her to go on to achieve a degree in philosophy at Manchester University and to study psychology at Cambridge. Isaacs further went on to train as a psychoanalyst. In the meantime, she continued to treat patients until late in her life. She took the post of lecturer in infant education at Darlington Training College between 1913 and 1914. Isaacs married William briefly, but the marriage ended after a short time. In 1922, she remarried Nathan Isaacs, whom supported Susan's work throughout their long union. Susan Isaacs was an influential pedagogist who translated the complex psychological development theories such as Freud and Piaget into something that could be practically used. Isaacs, like Froebel and Dewey, advocated an individualized approach to learning characterized by gentle encouragement to children to discover the nature of the world for them. She was also heavily influenced by the scientific, psychological and developmental theories of Sigmund Freud and Piaget and was a pioneer in child psychoanalysis, developing and Melanie Klein's work as well. However, Isaacs did acknowledge that within a free environment children also needed order, security and guidance. This is one of her major criticisms, that her theories gave children too much freedom. However, through her observations of children in their play, she saw how the children used the environment to make sense of the world, noting that children showed a capacity for logical thinking that was not fundamentally different from that of adults. Her work and influence. After training as a teacher and demonstrating academic brilliance, Isaacs was accepted to study philosophy at Manchester University. She later became an infant school teacher. It was when she was approached by Geoffrey Pike to head a new progressive early childhood school that she found her true vocation, pioneering a radical approach to educating young children. Isaacs embraced the ideas and pursued the job. Isaacs became the head of an experimental school, Malting House. This school had the aim to foster the individual development of children. The children at Malting House were aged between 2 and 7 years of mixed ability and behavior and came from generally well-heeled academic families. With Pike, Isaacs established the Malting House School, devising an environment and curriculum that was to stimulate the child's powers of curiosity and inquiry, and where the intellectual development and emotional behavior of the child was to be observed and recorded. The role of the teacher was to facilitate and guide the child. This idea is similar to Maria Montessori's learning style. In the year 1933, Isaacs became the first head of the Child Development Department at the Institute of Education, University of London, where she established an advanced course in child development for teachers of young children. Isaacs developed her knowledge of working with children Between 1929 and 1940, she was also an agony aunt under the pseudonym of Ursula Weiss, replying to readers' problems in child care journals. Isaac's theories on education have a contemporary feel to them, even though she began working on them almost a century ago. This is partly due to her progressive ideas and partly to her concise and approachable style. Ives further stresses on Isaac's creative use of the outside space at the Malting House School, which is familiar to early years settings in the current curriculum. According to Smith, another one of Isaac's contributions to modern practice lies in her data and analysis of child-centered practice and play. She gave weight to this approach, contributing to its longevity and giving confidence to practitioners who are already following these ideas. Furthermore, her main theories were value of nursery school, learning environment, role of adult, and importance of play. Her theories are now woven into the fabric of modern early years teaching as demonstrated by the early years foundation frameworks. Isaac's educational practices were based on complex psychological theories. Through her gift for communicating ideas, she influenced early years education at both individual and national levels. Her desire for a generous environment for children, both in terms of care and resources, remains with practitioners today. Firstly, Broadhead Howard would show that it has rapidly become clear that play is a key characteristic of effective practice in early childhood. Secondly, Jenkinson also confirms that play lies at the heart of childhood. And finally, Clark Moss indicates that the concept of multiple listening helps children learn fast. Dear viewers, in this lesson, we have seen so far the tradition of Rousseau, Pestalozzi, Montessori, Dewey, and Susan Isaacs. Thank you.